In New York's absolutely insane housing market, there's a quiet revolution going on. And we're not talking about some fancy new skyscraper. We're talking about homes that for the longest time have been legally treated like cars. So let's get into how a simple change in paperwork could finally open the door to home ownership for thousands of people. So here's the big question. Could a mobile home, of all things, actually be a solution to New York's housing crisis? For years, that idea would have sounded completely ridiculous. But a brand new law is making everybody, and I mean everybody, take a second look. Is this the affordable housing answer we've all been waiting for? And let's be really clear here, this isn't just a housing problem. No, it's a full-blown crisis, and it's getting worse. Rents are through the roof, there's hardly anything for sale. The dream of owning a home in New York is just turning into a total nightmare for so many. And that's exactly why this new law isn't just some legal footnote, it's a potential lifeline. To really get why this is such a huge deal, you've got to understand the old system. For decades, the biggest thing holding these homeowners back wasn't the house itself. No, it was the ridiculous legal red tape that literally treated their home like a car. Okay, so imagine you go to buy a car, but it's not a car, it's your house. That's pretty much what a chattel loan is. Because these homes were legally just personal property, buyers were totally locked out of the normal mortgage market. Instead, they were stuck with these really high-interest short-term loans. Honestly, it was a system almost designed to prevent them from building any real wealth. I mean, look at the difference here. It's just night and day. On one side, you have the dead end of chattel loans, crazy high interest, short repayment times, and just a few lenders, some of whom were pretty predatory. But on the other side, you've got the wide-open road of a real mortgage, lower rates, 30-year terms, and a competitive market that actually helps the buyer. And if you think that sounds absurd, just listen to this quote from a veteran in the mortgage industry. A fireproof cabinet stuffed with vehicle titles for people's homes. It's his perfect image of a clunky, outdated system that kept thousands of New Yorkers from ever achieving the American dream. Well, the good news is the era of that fireproof cabinet is finally coming to an end. There's a new law, and it's a game changer in every sense of the word. It's about to completely rewrite the rules of the housing market in New York. It's called the Land Home Property Act, and trust me, that's a name you're going to want to remember. Now, this did not happen overnight. Not even close. It took 15 long years of political fighting to get this law passed. And that just shows you how powerful the status quo was and, how persistent the people fighting for a fairer system had to be. So, the law was finally signed by Governor Kathy Hochul, and it fits right into her bigger mission for the state. Her whole thing is about tackling the housing crisis head-on, by cutting through regulations and just clearing the way to build more homes of every single kind. So, how in the world do you legally turn a car into a house? Well, it's not magic. It's a 5-step process that's really the heart and soul of this new law. Let's break down how it actually works. It all boils down to this checklist. First, the home has to be physically attached to a permanent foundation. Next, it's got to be hooked up to utilities. Then, the owner has to either own the land outright or have a formal recordable lease. After that, they file a legal document. It's called an affidavit of affixation. And then, the last very symbolic step, they hand over that old vehicle title to the DMV for good. Bye-bye. And boom, just like that, the transformation is complete. The home is no longer a vehicle in the eyes of the law. It's a piece of real estate with all the rights and responsibilities that come with it. This is a change that's going to open up a whole new world for homeowners and the housing market. So what's the big payoff for all this work? Well, it all comes down to the money. This change unlocks a world of better, fairer financing for both the people buying these homes and the banks lending the money. So, who really comes out on top here? The answer is pretty much everyone. Homebuyers, they finally get a fair shot at the same 30-year mortgages everyone else gets. Lenders, they get a whole new market to work with, and they have the backing of huge players like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And the whole housing market gets a much-needed injection of affordability. Okay, so the law is on the books, but we're not quite at the finish line yet. The next year or so is absolutely crucial. This is when state agencies have to figure out how to turn this law into a day-to-day reality. The clock is definitely ticking. Here's the timeline we're looking at. The law was signed in late 2025. Right now, in 2026, state agencies are busy drafting all the specific rules and procedures, the nitty-gritty details that make this whole thing work in the real world. And then the big day. The law officially takes effect on December 12th, 2026.
Now, this is where it gets tricky. It's a real balancing act. The new rules have to be simple enough for a regular homeowner to navigate, but they also have to be totally bulletproof so that lenders in Wall Street feel confident. If they get it right, it's a brand new on-ramp to the American dream. But if they get it wrong, it's just going to be another traffic jam of red tape.
So what's it going to be? Is this a genuine revolution in affordable housing, or is it just another false start? The next year is really going to tell the tale. But one thing is for sure, the humble mobile home is no longer being ignored. It's right at the center of the fight for New York's future. And honestly, that alone is a victory worth celebrating.